Pleasant to be around, Shea. Kentucky. One win again. One of the 5 teams remaining in the SEC undefeated beats Northern Illinois 31-23. Sloppy game, but I'll tell you who wasn't sloppy, Shane. Will Levis, 18-26, 303 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And I did some digging, Shane. This is the best stat I found of the week, and I'm giving Will Levis clutch player of the week. 10 of 10 on third downs for 237 yards and 3 touchdowns. My goodness. Kentucky, they were 10 of 16 on third down with an average of 6.5 yards to go. So that's a long way to go. Will Levis knocked it out of the park. He is really getting a rapport. I downplayed the addition of Tavion Robinson. I was like, no way he's the next Wandale. 7 catches, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns. He has been insane. The freshman, Berrien Brown, 4 catches, 102, with 2 touchdowns of his own. Man, it is weird and wild, Shane. I mean, they're giving up sacks. They can barely rush the ball. They rush for 2.9 yards per carry against Northern Illinois. But it may not matter, Shane. If Will Levis plays this well, if these receivers keep getting hotter and hotter, this may be Tennessee 2.0, brother. I mean, they're going to outscore everybody. Like I said, it's wild to see because, hell, this game was tied up at halftime. Northern Illinois didn't even have their damn starting quarterback, Shane. This is the team that lost by multiple points, multiple touchdowns to Vanderbilt at home, yet they were in it with Kentucky. But you win the game, you win the game. Who cares how you got it done?
Right.
And now you go into a huge test next week at Ole Miss. I'm feeling good if I'm a Kentucky fan.
Mike, if you remove the Tennessee-Florida matchup, Will Levis is your MVP in my opinion. This guy does it all, and obviously it was nice seeing Robinson step up. I'd love to have him on my fantasy football team, because I'd be a clear-cut winner this week. But this is a program that, like you said, it's got some flaws. And there's a few teams. I don't want to feel like Kentucky's the only one. There are several teams in the SEC right now that have gaping flaws that they need to work on if they're going to win it all. You know what I'm saying? So this is one of those situations that Kentucky, it hasn't been pretty, but it's been a win. It's all that matters, Mike. Every game can be ugly as long as you have the most points at the end of the game. So Kentucky, kudos, 4-0. I mean, when's the last time? I don't know any stats on that, but here's another program that's top 10 in the country. Kentucky has come a long, long ways. And a lot of people look at NIU and they're saying, well, they should have beat the shit out of them. Well, I was saying they shouldn't, because if you watched that Vandy game last week, obviously this was a program that has the ability to move the yardsticks. This is a team that has ability to stay above the chase. So I love the fact that Kentucky went in here. It was sloppy, but they came away with the victory. And again, on the arms of Will Levis.
Right. And one other thing, Shane, 6 passing plays of 15 or more yards, including a 70-yard touchdown, a 69-yard touchdown, a 40-yard touchdown. So, man, they were gashing Northern Illinois for these giant plays. Only one slight red flag here, Shane. Northern Illinois was 4 for 4 in the red zone for 23 points. So we got to get that cleaned up, particularly on the road next week against Ole Miss, because that's where these big games are going to be defined. And we've seen it from Kentucky's defense. They've got the capability. They didn't play up to their standard in this game, but maybe they were looking ahead to this trip to Ole Miss. You know what?
You got to be who you are. And right now we have a very talented quarterback, and we have some explosive wide receivers, and so we're creating some big plays. Yes, I think we want to be a little more consistent in the run game. See, everybody appreciates the run game now. For 5 years, y'all didn't appreciate I'm joking. Everybody relax.
Are you, and I know we talked a little bit last week, and I don't want to rain on any parades, but there's a theme with Kentucky, and that's Will Levis, prepare to run for your life. And I'm just curious, can this continue? I know Will is one of the biggest quarterbacks you'll ever meet. And I mean, thank God he's been working out and eating right, because he has taken a pounding just about every single week. But when you get into the thick of this SEC play, it's out, man. There's no hiding it. Everybody knows what you're not good at right now, and unfortunately, it's not running the ball, and that's not protecting your quarterback. Is this able? Are they going to be able to continue to do this, or is it going to catch up to them?
Yeah, that's the biggest concern I have, Shane, with Kentucky is, can we keep Will Levis upright? Because, man, he was getting nailed in that Florida game, if you remember. Now, he toughed it out. He was the toughest player on the field that day, I thought. And even in this Northern Illinois game, he was getting lit up on some of these big-time passes. He's getting sacked left and right. Miami of Ohio sacking him. Florida's all over him. It's just week in, week out. He's getting destroyed. And they're needing him to run the ball, too, because they don't have much of a running game. So, no, to answer your question, I'm concerned that this is not going to be able to be sustainable, but they do get Chris Rodriguez back. So, that's the feather in their cap, but they have got to clean up this issue because Tennessee, Georgia, these teams are going to be coming after him. South Carolina, that's the only shot you got at beating Kentucky is getting Will Levis off his rhythm. And no one's been able to do it, but I hope he can keep it up. But I really hope Kentucky can protect him so they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. Okay.
And the team that's going to be trying to get him off rhythm, Ole Miss, they beat Tulsa 35-27. This was a weird and wild game, Shane. Tulsa, I tried to warn you, they're averaging over 40 points per game. They had over 103 passing yards, Shane, in the first quarter. And this was like a tale of two halves here. I mean, Ole Miss was up 35-17 at half. They didn't score in the second half. They played about a half of football here. They averaged 7.7 yards per rush in the first half. They had 111 passing yards at halftime. And then in the second half, 4.3 rushing yards per rush, 43 total. I mean, totally ineffective. And this is the second game. This is the second game. I'm thinking back to Troy where they just basically no-showed a half on offense. And that is big-time troubling. Again, Zach Evans went down, did not return to the ball game. Judkins stepped up in a big way, 140 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, Jackson Dart may not been able, not killing it with his arm, 154 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But he did have 116 yards, so he showed he's got the capability of making up that production with his legs. But Tulsa, again, I love to reference these red zone stats because they're so important, Shane. Tulsa was 5 for 5 in the red zone, scored 27 red zone points. So next week, we may have 2 of the struggling red zone defenses going head-to-head when it's Ole Miss and Kentucky. These 2 may have a field day down there, and the game's going to be decided on who can get stops in the red zone because I think from what we know of Ole Miss and what we know of Kentucky, they're going to be able to move the ball on one another. But when the field condenses, plays are always tougher to be made down there. I gotta believe that Kentucky's got the edge at quarterback, but I think Ole Miss clearly's got the edge in the running game. So, man, we are headed for one epic showdown next week.
Well, Mike, on that note, again, we talked about this a little bit in the offseason. Going Troy, Central Arkansas, Georgia Tech, now Tulsa. Is there any part of you feeling like that may be a little bit of fool's gold?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. That's what I'm saying. Everybody's looking 4-0, and they're moving quickly up the AP polls. Right. But again, have they really been tested? And I'm not convinced that Georgia Tech. Don't get me wrong, 42-0 is a great outing, but Georgia Tech, is lost every game I think except for one. Right. So I'm not convinced right now that Ole Miss is. The only reason I'm saying that, brother, is because I'm worried about this quarterback situation. I'm worried about they put a lot into that running game, which is great. Mm-hmm. But what happens when they play an SEC defense that decides to stuff that run? Is Dart a quarterback that can win a game for you? And I'm not convinced right now that he is. And
you may have missed this, Shane. I know you've been busy, but Georgia Tech just fired their coach, so that gives you an idea of what kind of caliber of a pro win that is now. They turned around and kicked him to the curb. You know what I mean? So. Yeah.
All right. Back to the option,
100%. If you were to ask me, Shane, would I rather have Kentucky's route to this game, or Ole Miss is 100 out of 100. I'm taking Kentucky. They've been to the swamp. And hell, we got Lane Kiffin. I'll play his comments here in just a second. But he basically he did call out the crowd, but someone asked him, what'd you think of today's great crowd? And he's like, did you see? Were you at the game? I mean, this was not an atmosphere. He said we got to give fans a reason to show up. But
Coach, obviously you made it a issue this week about getting the fans out there. Talk about how well you were excited about the fans out there today.
Were you at the game?
Yes.
Okay. I must have been at a different one. So, is what it is. I didn't think looking around it was very full, and obviously at half, but the students left too. So, when you don't score in the second half of the game, I'm not really up here to, try to motivate the fans. But I got to do a better job motivating our players, and we do that and keep this longest win string since 1947 or something. Kyle told me at home. Keep that going, then maybe they'll be here next week.
I think he was a little perturbed here, Shane. I mean, Ole Miss got the longest win streak in like 50 years at home, and yet fans are not showing up. I mean, my God, do you want this guy to leave? Are you not happy with winning every damn game at home? You have got to sell out this place. They're striping it out for Kentucky. It has got to be an environment, because I have to think, I know they're both undefeated, and we'll get to the point spread here in a moment, Shane, but I got to think Kentucky is favored to win this game, given the fact that they've been to the swamp. So the swamp is going to be that swamp they jumped into week 2 is a hell of a lot tougher environment than what they're going to be walking to on Saturday in Oxford. So the team has got to make a difference, and I don't know if they're capable of doing it yet, but I sure as hell would never count out Lane Kiffin to have a perfect game plan for such a big game. You know what?